Father John Misty is the singer-songwriter of the future, of the modern age. He is painfully self-aware and egocentric, at least his character is, and cynical to the bone. But Father John Misty is not a human being. Josh Tillman is a human being, and Father John Misty is his crazy, cynical alter ego. Since his debut as Father John Misty, his music has only grown in its orchestration, its dramatism, its cynicism, and it has, album after album just kind of raised the bar as far as its beautiful arrangements. But most importantly, each album has kind of further reinforced and cemented Father John Misty as a character. But God's Favorite Customer takes a step back. Doesn't look so much as big ideas like politics or marriage. Instead, it focuses more on what the artist is going through. God's Favorite Customer is, in many ways, the first time where you really start to see the lines split a bit more, where as a listener, you can't really tell where Josh Tillman ends and Father John Misty begins. They're kind of blending into each other, or one is eating one of the other. He's dealing a bit more with the repercussions and the absurdity of just being in the spotlight and being a singer-songwriter, and how it affects his life and his psyche and his personal life. Please Don't Die, which I believe is the 5th track on this album, is kind of told from the perspective of someone telling somebody else to calm down and slow down because you're all that I have and you're all that I need, so please don't die. It could be him addressing it to himself, his wife addressing it to him, but it seems to be addressed to him. In the songwriter, Father John Misty seems to admit to some kind of guilt about writing songs about his wife so publicly, writing songs about his relationship to kind of show a more vulnerable side to himself and kind of humanize himself, because maybe he feels like he isn't that good of a person. It says, "Would you undress me repeatedly in public to show how very noble and naked you can be?" So, yeah, he admits that it is a bit of an abuse of power to write songs about certain people, just to how that vulnerability can make the writer seem. The lead single, Mr. Tillman, is a great song. It's super peppy. It's almost uplifting in its melody, but at its core, it's kind of scary and sad. It tells a story about a man who's stuck in one hotel room or in one hotel, and everyone in, the whole staff of the hotel kind of gets to know him and worry about him. It's like, do you need to get checked in anywhere, Mr. Tillman? So it's quite funny, but, I think it says a lot about Josh Tillman that he was able to write such a funny song about something that's kind of sad. A lot of songs are testament to just how complex it is and how it's dealing with the situation at the heart of it, which is some kind of personal tragedy. There's the bit of like the funny denial, self-deprecation, where it's just like, well, nothing fucking matters. And then there's the more raw moments towards the end of the album where he's like, I'm a piece of shit. So it's very honest, it's very raw, and very brave. It's a very brave album. But this album doesn't feel like any kind of statement as he's done before. It's very similar in that way to his debut, Fear Fun. It's kind of just allowing the listener to become acquainted with him again in a whole nother way. Musically and instrumentally, this album is not as ambitious as the previous ones. Those were super ornate, and flutes and harps and horns, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. This one has some elements of that, but at the core of it, the songs and the lyrics are at the forefront. In many ways, this is Father John Misty's greatest work so far. It has him at his most kind of layered and complex and vulnerable, more so than even on his most, acclaimed I Love You, Honey Bear. Some other darker themes from this album do kind of fall into line with those from last year's Pure Comedy. It's just that album was a bit bloated and a bit harder to absorb and digest just because of how dense it was in its content. This one is the most immediate one yet. One of the common misconceptions about Father John Misty is that he's one-dimensional. But, this album and his others are proof that he really is not. I think his persona can be a bit misleading, and it can be keep him at a distance from being super likable, but that's part of the charm in many ways. He's funny and he's dry and he's acerbic to a fault, but just as he's funny, he's introspective and he's romantic and he's sentimental. So here's a man who at face value is a great singer-songwriter who has a lot of respect and honor for the kind of more pristine, classic, kind of 70s stuff. That playful cynicism that cultivated this whole asshole persona of his is fully, contradicted by his, heart. His music has a lot of heart, and forget the persona, forget the press. This is a man who hates the press, and the best way for him to deal with this is to antagonize it, even if it means he's antagonizing future listeners and his audience. He just kind of wants to do his thing, and that's a very honorable thing, and it's a very smart way to deal with fame. So, listen to the music, check it out. God's Favorite Customer. It's on streaming service everywhere. Yeah, let me know what you think.